sister was a
Stan's sister. Cindy
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry.
We'll get started here. So I just want to welcome everyone here. We have friends and family, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce, I'll take a brief moment, Keith Byram, cousin, and he was actually born and raised in the Oberon-Neepawa area, now resides in the Yukon and has quite most of his, or all of his professional career. But he's back home and has been home for a week as he's been celebrating some family events and we've had many get-togethers. But he also wanted to take this opportunity to donate his first book publication to the Neepawa Library. So I wanted to allow him the opportunity to do that here in person, and how wonderful it is to have him here and able to make that presentation with all of us present here today. So I welcome you all, and I welcome Neepawa Mayor Brian Headley to be part of this presentation as well. So thank you. And before I hand over the stage here, I'm just going to share with you a little bit about Keith Byram, and I'm going to read his biography. It's extensive, but so deserving, and you have done so many good things in your territory in the Yukon, but also worldwide. And so I just want to share with you some of what his accomplishments are. Keith Byram, the eldest son of William Byram and Dorothy Baker, was born in Neepawa. Keith's first home was the store in Oberon. At the age of 12, he and his family moved to a farm 9 miles south of Neepawa. In 1961, he graduated from the University of Manitoba with a degree in civil engineering and immediately went to work for Defence Construction Limited. During the following 8 years, Keith had 9 different posting locations throughout Canada. In 1969, Keith took a position with Canada Department of Public Works in Whitehorse, Yukon, as the design and construction engineer on the Alaska, Campbell, Dempster highways. He has called the Yukon his home ever since. In 1987, Keith founded Pelly Construction Limited. In his 38-year history, Pelly has completed hundreds of private and public projects throughout Yukon, British Columbia, Northwest Territories, and Alaska. Pelly's work includes hundreds of kilometers of highway, construction, airport construction, mining infrastructure. A notable project completed by Pelly Construction is for the British Antarctic Survey to construct a runway and ancillary facilities at the Rothera Research Station on Adelaide Island, Antarctica. The work consisted of blasting and screening rock, as well as the construction of a 1,000-meter runway, airplane hangar, seawater processing system, large fuel storage tanks, and wharf to accommodate ocean-going ships. The project was complex, requiring detailed planning and logistics to transport all materials and supplies from North America on a container ship to Antarctica. Keith was bestowed with the Engineers Canada Fellowship, which is a national award recognizing noteworthy contribution to the engineering field in Canada. He also received both the Queen II Gold and Diamond Jubilee medals for his significant contributions to the Yukon. He was also inducted into the Yukon Transportation Hall of Fame for his role in developing the Yukon highway infrastructure. Most recently, on June 30th of 2025, so just a few days ago, Keith was appointed to the Order of Canada, a very prestigious honor and one so deserving. Congratulations, Keith. He has served as president of the Yukon Association of Professional Engineers, as well as director of the Yukon Contractors Association, Yukon Chamber of Commerce, Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and Canadian Construction Association. He has been active in his community, where he served as the chair of the Yukon Hospital Foundation and the Yukon Territory Water Board. He has served as director of Yukon College and the member of Yukon Justice Advisory Board. He is an inductee to the Order of Yukon. Deep in his heart, he will always be a farm kid from Oberon. And that is why we are here today. As he has been in Manitoba for a number of days, he wanted to take the opportunity to do this in person. So I want to thank you, Keith, for sharing your professional career with us here in your book publication, and for all your endeavors that you have shared with us here in our world, actually. Thank you and congratulations on your most recent inductee into the Order of Canada. And again, thank you, congratulations. I will hand over the stage to you, Keith.
Thanks, Jody. As I said, if you live long enough, you get all these awards. It's nice to be back in Nipah. I didn't grow up here, but both Gwen and I were born here in Nipah, and she grew up in town, and I came from out in the little country store where Oberon was. Not much left there anymore, but that's where I started off. And then Gwen and I went to high school when we were in school, and then we kind of drifted apart. She went to study nursing and me engineering, and then one day we happened to run into each other, and at that time she was just moving to Dauphin, and I was moving to New Yorkton, Saskatchewan to build a radar station. We used to meet in Robin, and then we got married and had 3 fine daughters. All 3 were here this week, but the 2 have gone back. Jennifer's still here. It'll take us back a little bit. And so it's always nice to get back to Nipah. We used to come here to visit Gwen's mother, Frankie Thompson, when she was still alive. And she lived just in the next building here, I guess, in her later years. Thompson, the Yellowhead Center, it's called. And so anyway, we had a various and interesting life so far. And one of the things that was particularly interesting was this Arctic Runway project. In the fall of 1988, Gwen said to me one day, "Why are you always taking that piece of paper out of your shirt pocket and reading it?" And I said, "Well, it's something out of the Journal of Commerce. It's an ad saying that British Antarctic Survey are conducting a worldwide search for contractors with cold weather experience." And she said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, no, that's us. And so we, my partner at the time and myself, Norm Kelly, we flew over to England to the initial meeting, and turned out that a classmate of mine, Dr. Ken Adam from Winnipeg, was the head designer of this project in Antarctica for the British government, and which had nothing to do with us getting the job, but it was nice to know that it was a Canadian project. And when we went to the meeting, the large British contractors all said that they would not bid it. They would boycott it unless it was done on a cost-plus basis. So, but the Ken Adams company and the British government decided that no, they would do it on a firm price lump sum basis plus unit prices for materials that varied, and that's the way it went. So we eventually got shortlisted to 4 companies worldwide, one from Holland, one from the British, the islands off Britain, and one from Toronto and us. And so we were selected to go on a site visit. one person from each company, the 4 companies. And so I flew over to England, and we took at that time there was no commercial flights to the Falkland Islands, so we went on a wide-bodied Royal Air Force jet from England to Falklands, which is an 18-hour trip with a stop in Ascension Island for fuel. And then from there we went on board British survey, the research ship that belonged to the British Antarctic Survey, from the Falklands, 10 days around the Horn and down the peninsula to Rothera. And we were only on the peninsula, or at the site, for 2 days. And then we made our way back to South America and then home. And it was a 28-day trip with 2 days to look the job over. And then we eventually got the job, and the logistics were horrendous. I mean, the work was the same work that we always do: drill and blast and move rock and dirt and crush gravel. But the logistics was something, because the British government gave us no help in that part of the job. We had to figure it out ourselves, and we had to, for instance, find a ship. We had a broker in London, England, a broker in Vancouver, looking worldwide for a ship that would take all our stuff. 1.25 million liters of fuel, food for 70 people for 2 years, 2 seasons, all our machinery and equipment, explosives, somehow to get from the ship to the shore, which meant getting a tug and building a cradle, and we found a bunch of portable barges in Texas that we had to haul up to Vancouver. And they're essentially 40 foot by 10 foot by 5 foot deep tanks that all pinned together to form any size barge you wanted. So we had 2 90 foot by 40 foot barges. So that as the ship, when the ship finally got down there, it just said there was no place to tie it up, so we just did a controlled drift in the ocean for 9 days while we unloaded onto the barges and pushed everything ashore. So it was quite exciting times, and particularly exciting because we had very little money.
Virtually none.
And the ship required, like for instance, required $1.5 million before it even leave Europe, and we had to come up with that somehow, which we did. And it was very successful. We were there for 2 years. The ocean-going wharf to accommodate ocean-going ships was not in the original plan, and between seasons we worked with the owner and the consultants to design this wharf and built that. And Jennifer was there, and she was a person of all trades. She sometimes was running the crusher control tower, and sometimes was working with the steel workers and or doing various equipment jobs. And I think she got a good initiation the first day she arrived there, because her first shift was 22 hours. The normal shift on site was 11 and a half, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, week after week after week. And there was no days off really at all. And we did have the odd little bit of recreation. We had a golf tournament one day, and the welder made up golf clubs out of rebar and a piece of steel. And, it all went well. And the details are all contained in here. And Patricia Cunning, my co-writer, was traveling on the plane with me back from a mine opening, and the guy that owned the mine said, "Patricia, you should talk to Keith about his experiences in Antarctica." And that's how this got started. And we worked on it for about 3 years before it got published. But even myself, reading it sometimes I get tears in my eyes when I think back about it, and I also think back about how the hell did we ever do this? I hope if you're interested, you'll get a chance to read this book, and I hope you find it interesting.
Well, Keith, on behalf of the town of Neequa, we congratulate you on your book, but also on quite an amazing life that you've had. Farm boy from Oberon, eh? Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah, there was a lot of strange things came out of this job too, like our oldest daughter Karen became one of the biggest alpaca farmers in the United States. She ended up with her and her husband, 800 alpacas, and she got that idea when she was looking after our logistics in Punta Arenas, Chile,
Yeah.
and went on a little tour with some of her friends, and she ended up getting a ranch in Washington, and flew 323 alpacas on a chartered jet from southern Chile to New York. So there's a whole bunch of stories like that. Didn't have really anything to do with the project, but resulted from it.
Yeah.
I'll just sign this up for the museum. Thank you very much, Jody, for organizing this.
Thank you. Congratulations. So I just want to welcome everyone. We have coffee and snacks in the back for anybody that wants to join us or maybe have further discussion here with our guest of honor, Keith. And I also, again, want to say thank you to Mayor Brian Heavy, but also to the Neequa Library for accommodating us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We worked on, preparing the bid and preparing, after we put the bid in, we were a little bigger. We had to sort of prove to the Brits that we could do the job, so we made a lot of trips back and forth from Whitehorse to Cambridge, England. And finding a ship and getting every little detail, because there's no, like if you ran out of something, there was no supplies store that you could go to and just get it out. So we had to think of every little nut and bolt and spare parts that we needed for 2 years and have it all on the ship.
So essentially 2 years starting from scratch and building something.
Well, we had 2 seasons of construction. And the season there only runs from about mid-December to mid-April. Those are the absolute longest time period, because if you stay beyond that, the weather gets so bad you can't get back. So you're there for the winter.
All right, so this shares a lot of the interesting stories, the trials and tribulations of it. What made you decide you wanted to share a copy of it here with the Neequa Library? What was your inspiration in this?
Well, it was just that both Gwen and I grew up and went to school here, so we always had a big interest in Neequa. And I thought it'd probably be nice if I got this, what I think is an interesting story to share with you. And, so we did a run of 525 books to start with, and we had a book release in this last January, and they're pretty much gone now. We're going to get another 500.
There'll be a second printing.
Yeah.
Okay. When can we sort of expect that? A little later this year, or is it happening right now?
I would think by this fall.
Okay. If anyone's...
And it's printed by Friesians.
Oh, okay. All right. And if we wanted to sort of find a copy for ourselves, we can find it on their website,
Yeah,
or how do we track it?
Well, you can get it through Pelly Construction, or probably the best thing is just to order from McBride Museum. Is the I think there's something in it. Is the
Okay. If it's okay, Keith, I'm just going to take a picture of that. That way, if people are interested in buying a copy
Yes.
on the second printing,
Yeah.
I'll be able to share those details with them. Oh. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's very fascinating. I'm
When,
very much looking forward to reading it myself and going through there.
there's a lot of kind of odd things happen here like that. I had these two brokers looking for a ship worldwide, and the broker in Vancouver were the ones that found it, and they had a saying around their place then, Pacific Shipping or whatever they call themselves. If you get a phone call from some guy in the Yukon wants to rent a ship, don't hang up. He's not crazy.
Well, that is wonderful. I thank you very much for taking a little bit of time for me. I'm very interested in learning a little bit more here.
And I had a lot of help from like people that I'd dealt with a lot. Like our fuel company gave me 1.25 million liters of fuel, but I couldn't pay for it until I got to Antarctica and got my big mobilization payment. So they had to trust me with that 1.25 million liters of fuel that I was going to succeed.
You just have to take your word for it.
Yeah. And the same thing with the food. Like we had to I had a caterer that made up a list, a 2-year list to feed 70 people. And all that food had to be taken on the ship with us. And it had to be, most of it had to be taken either in reefer big containers, or because we had to go, of course, across the equator with it. And then we didn't know about what to do with beer because the British had a little, they had a few scientists there in the summertime, and then they had a skeleton staff of about 6 or 7 people that spent the winter there. And they had this tiny little bar and a hot, we can't move in there with 70 people. And inevitably those people are going to want to have a drink and they'll want to go to their bar and be upset. So what we ended up doing, Labatt's double filtered 1,200 dozen beer for us. And we had to put them in a refrigerated container as we're going across the Antarctic Circle. And they said, if you want this to be fresh for 2 years, you got to put it in refrigeration. And so we did, and we had, besides our kitchen and dining room camp, part of the camp, we had a rec room. So the catering staff would just fill the big fridge up with beer every day, and we didn't charge for it, and it was never abused. When people working such long hours that they would come in and have a beer or two, and that was it. So it was never a problem.
Fascinating.
And the people that I took down there knew the risk we were taking, and they just worked their hearts out for week after week on the end.
Well, that is very interesting. I'm very much looking forward to it. I want to thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Very good. Yeah.
All right. I'm sure you guys have 1 or 2 extra questions
Yes,
there.
covered most of it here. Reading here, we're from NECTV.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I'd just love to ask you just a question about receiving the Order of Canada.
Oh yeah.
Because that's very recent. That just happened, I guess.
Yeah, on the 30th.
On the 30th, so how did you find out?
Well, I had been notified about 3 weeks ago that this award was going to be made on the 30th of June. But they said, please, don't talk about this until there's an official announcement. You can tell your wife and immediate family, but keep it quiet until after we announce it in Ottawa. So, and I don't know, they say they didn't have a ceremony this year, but they said in the future I might be invited to go to Ottawa for the ceremony.
That's quite the honor to.
Yeah, oh, it is. I mean,
Congratulations.
it's a pretty rare honor.
Very, very.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you want?
I just wanted to ask you, because you mentioned like it took you 3 years to write. Like, was there anything that you found particularly difficult to write?
Not really. It was just getting it. Every time I'd sit down with Patricia for an interview, I'd come up with other things that I remembered. And it just kept growing and growing. And then because Karen and, one daughter didn't get down there, she stayed home and she and Gwen fended off the predators and looked after things at home because we were still building highways and stuff back at home. And but Karen looked after all our logistics in Chile, and Jennifer was right on the site doing all sorts of different things, and so they were all heavily involved in this, and so as Patricia was writing the book, she would give it to them to review, and and they would remember things and change things and correct things. So it just, and it was almost 30 years after it happened. So it took some redoing here in quite a few different places, and it's sort of divided into sections. Like the first part is where is Antarctica and what's the significance of it, and then how we got the job, and then how we got prepared for the job, and then towards the back of the book, it's sort of a bit of history of the daughters and us and stuff. So it's we reorganized it to make it flow as best we could.
I know that passage of water around the tip of South America between there and Antarctica is one of the most dangerous.
Oh, it is. It's roughest water in the world.
Yeah, what was that passage like?
Well,
Did you have any concerns about losing all of your stuff through there?
And we didn't lose anything on the way down, but on the way back, we had the barges in our tug on the deck of the ship, and some cables broke, and we lost the big barge, not all of them, but a few big barge sections into the ocean that were never seen again. But
could be worse.
Yeah, and some of our people went. On both first and second year, went from South America to the site on boats, and I guess the ride was very, very rough. Fortunately, I always flew it.
Yeah.
Because we'd fly to King George Island, and in an old DC-6 that a guy from Florida had in South America that he used to charter out. And the Chileans have a runway right at the end of the peninsula, relatively close to South America. And we'd fly there with the DC-6 and then fly from there to the site. And up here, if you go up this ice, it goes up, a mile from camp. It's a mile deep sort of thing, the ice. Yeah. And we would fly from the Chilean runway to here with ski-equipped otter, twin otter airplanes. And there's a company called Boric Air from Alberta that specialized in that sort of thing around the world. We used there. And then the first year, and then the second year, we had the runway finished to the point where we could. It wasn't a legal flight; it was an illegal flight. According to Canadian standards, but we used to fly directly from Punta Arenas and land on the Strip, and there was no alternates, so if the weather closed in or they ran into trouble, there was nowhere to go. So they would come halfway across the Drake Passage, and I would talk to them, and if there's any sign of the weather deteriorating, I'd say, turn around and go back to South America.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And is that site still in operation? Is that site still in operation there?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And it's really the only main access to the whole continent, and all kinds of countries that are doing research use this runway.
I wondered if that was the main site.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
And they don't allow any commercial use, and nobody owns the land, so they can't stop you from landing here. But they won't sell you any fuel. So that pretty much puts an end to
I'm looking
that.
forward to reading through that because that is a fascinating journey. Do you have anything else? Great. Thank you so much
Very
for your
good.
time.
Yeah, one another of the big, huge obstacles here, was the British government. Usually in North America, you're required on construction to put up a bond, a 50% bond that is worth 50% of your bid. That guarantees that you'll finish the work,
Yeah.
and a 50% bond that says that you'll pay for the stuff you use in the work. The Brits wanted a 100% bond, 100% performance, and that's unheard of. And my bonding company said, I made all sorts of presentations how we were going to do the work to reassure them that we could do it, but they wanted this 100% performance bond, so I had to go to our bonding company and say, I want a 100% performance bond to build a runway 17,000 miles south, you know.
Imagine how that conversation went.
Yeah, well, they didn't throw me right out, but they considered it, and fine. I went through all sorts of, scenarios of how we're doing the job, and finally I had to go see the president of the bonding company, and they said, we have no way of assessing the risk. He said, it's no way at all of assessing the risk. He said,
Project.
but he said, you've been doing projects for us and have never let us down. Can you look me in the eye and say you can actually do this job? And I said, yeah. Okay, he said, you got it.
Wow.